My family ghosted me for years, so I bought the mansion next door and their jaws dropped in shame. The voicemail was cold, not angry, not spiteful, just cold. That kind of chill you feel when you realize someone no longer sees you as worth the effort. "We've been busy," my sister's voice said, "but we'll catch up soon, promise." That promise had dust on it now, aged like something left on a shelf and forgotten. I had played that message years ago, one of the last I'd ever receive. Calls stopped being returned. Group chats moved on without me. My birthday? Just another Tuesday to them. Even when I sent that invitation for my college graduation, not a single reply came. I was reduced to a name mentioned only in passing, a relative in theory, not in practice. They had expectations: law school, medical residency, a corporate title they could brag about to their church friends and golf buddies. But I didn't take that path. I left college during my second year, took the savings I had, and moved 3 states away without telling anyone. I didn't just disappear. I made sure they didn't even notice I was gone. It was better that way. They had already erased me. I just made it official. While they hosted holiday parties and posed for photos in their manicured backyard, I was living out of a cramped studio, skipping meals to pay rent and showering at the gym. Not because I was lazy, but because I believed in something none of them ever did. Myself. I didn't ask for help. Not once. I didn't give them the satisfaction of saying, "See, you needed us after all." I learned how to code, slept 4 hours a night, and worked with startups too desperate to care about credentials. I built networks, traded favors, solved problems no one else could. Quietly, relentlessly, I climbed. It started with a small software licensing deal, then another, then a partnership with a fintech company that exploded during a market shift. I kept my name out of the press, hid behind LLCs and shell corporations, let others be the face while I made the decisions. Within 4 years, I was earning more a month than my parents had made in a decade. I bought a penthouse, not to show off, but because it was quiet. And finally, one afternoon while reviewing my investments, I noticed a new alert. A property listing. Suburban. Upper middle-class neighborhood. Family-friendly. Nothing particularly special, except the address. I looked at it again. Then once more, slower this time. It was next door to their house. It was almost too perfect, a coincidence so sharp it felt scripted. The backyard I used to mow every Saturday for $10 and a Pepsi now stood just a fence away from a property I could buy in full without blinking. So I did. Not out of bitterness, but because I could, and because I wanted them to see what it looked like when the one they wrote off rewrote the rules. The day I moved in, the neighborhood was still waking up. Trucks pulled up just after dawn, sleek, efficient, branded in minimal black-on-black design. No chaos. No friends helping. No boxes tumbling from the back. Just professionals, sharp and practiced, carrying everything I owned, luxury, rare, custom, through polished double doors. The mansion was sleek, modern, marble and matte steel, a glass balcony that overlooked the street. My car, a deep obsidian electric model that purred rather than roared, arrived on a separate transport. They were outside. I didn't expect them to be, but there they were. My father in his faded lawn-mowing sneakers, hands on hips, staring like he couldn't decide whether it was a dream or a joke. My mother beside him, frozen, garden shears dangling from limp fingers. My sister stood in the driveway, jaw locked in place, eyes narrowed like she was solving a riddle she couldn't quite piece together. I stepped out of the car. No drama, no theatrics. I adjusted the cuff of my jacket, nodded to the driver, and walked toward the front steps. My sunglasses caught the morning light and flared like a camera flash. I didn't even glance at them. Not because I didn't see them, but because I knew that silence would speak louder than anything I could say. They weren't worth words. Not then. Inside, the place was immaculate. Not just expensive, but curated. Hand-selected furniture, every piece with history or value. Walls that didn't just hold paint. They told stories. My office had a glass desk imported from Italy, set beneath a skylight that flooded the space with natural light. There was no clutter, no noise. Just clarity. Days passed. Then weeks. They didn't come over. They didn't knock. But they looked. They always looked. When I stepped onto the balcony every morning with a coffee in hand, I caught the flicker of their blinds. When I hosted a small gathering with investors, I saw the way my sister's car slowed as she passed, trying to catch a glimpse through the open front doors. They were watching, and it was eating them. The same people who hadn't bothered to reply to a single message now couldn't stop themselves from peeking. My father mowed the lawn twice as often, always glancing toward my property line. My mother began watering the hedges that didn't need watering. And my sister, once too busy to answer a text, now made a habit of walking her dog precisely when I was out getting the mail. They weren't brave enough to speak. Not yet. Pride held them back, the same pride that had cut me off all those years ago. But their shame was visible, written in every nervous glance, every unfinished sentence when neighbors asked, "So who moved in next door?" And me, I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was detached, the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need confrontation. I didn't live there to make a statement. I lived there because I could, because I had earned every damn brick of that mansion, because the version of me they discarded had evolved into someone too big to be ignored. They used to mock my choices. Now they mimic my silence, and I don't say a word. I sip my coffee on that balcony every morning. Designer robe. Watch that cost more than their kitchen. Tablet in hand reviewing portfolios. Sometimes I smile, not because I'm happy to see them suffer, but because I no longer need them to see me win. They see it anyway. Let them water their lawn. Let them pretend nothing happened. Let them keep the silence alive. I'm not here to break it. I'm here to own it. The third week after moving in, I noticed the familiar routine of their lives unfolding in perfect sequence. My father's mower revved up every Saturday at exactly 10 a.m., his same loop around the hedge first, then the slope by the driveway. My mother clipped flowers she didn't arrange for anyone, placing them into a vase that always ended up on the kitchen window ledge like some sort of signal. And my sister, always timing her errands to overlap with mine, pretended her morning jog started naturally on the sidewalk just as I stepped into my waiting car. These weren't habits anymore. They were rehearsals, small, controlled attempts to be noticed again. I didn't respond. I wasn't pretending not to see them. I just didn't give them the part in my life they'd already rejected. My success wasn't a performance. I wasn't parading my worth. I had built it when no one cared. Now that they did, it didn't matter. Inside the house, the walls were thick, each room layered in quiet intention. I had stripped it to studs before moving in, redesigned everything. There was no trace of the previous owners, no fingerprints of history that didn't belong to me. Every room was purposeful. The hallway that faced their bedroom window, I turned it into a gallery, minimalist, sharp, and expensive. Not cluttered, just one spotlighted sculpture standing against a black wall. Cold, exact, unapologetic. I rarely left home without purpose. Grocery delivery replaced errands. Housekeeping arrived weekly, quiet and professional. Anything I needed came to me. Yet I still timed my balcony coffee around 7:42 a.m., just when my father stepped outside for the paper and looked across our properties like he was seeing the past knock on his present. One morning, a car I didn't recognize pulled into their driveway. A black SUV, tinted, clean, corporate. A man in a fitted gray suit stepped out, holding a laptop bag and clipboard. From my angle, I saw my father walk out to meet him, hands in pockets, nodding like he was confused but curious. My mother joined him. All three disappeared inside within seconds. Later that day, I overheard the voice from their backyard as I stepped onto my balcony. "Market's been hot around here," the man was saying. "Neighbor property sold well above expected value. Impressive flip." My father didn't answer. I recognized the silence. It was the same type he used when he didn't want to admit he'd misjudged something. The irony made my coffee taste better. That evening, I walked the property with my architect. We discussed Phase 2, pool addition, underground non-alcoholic wine cellar, rooftop redesign, every improvement visible from their upstairs windows. None of it petty, all of it planned. This house wasn't just my home, it was my monument. To the patience I held when they cut me off, to the self-respect I'd carved from their neglect. And then, the envelope arrived. No postmark, no sender, just my name in my sister's handwriting, slipped beneath my door like some kind of secret. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit on my desk while I reviewed contracts, sipped tea, and listened to the low hum of the automated blinds closing for the night. By midnight, I slid a letter opener through the fold. The paper inside wasn't formal. No apology, no explanation, just a paragraph, messy and rushed. We were wrong. You didn't need us, but we should have been there. Mom cries sometimes. Dad won't admit it, but he watches the driveway. I don't expect a reply. Just wanted you to know we see it now. All of it. There was no name. No address. Just that. I didn't respond. Not because I hated them, but because the version of me they wanted to reconnect with didn't exist anymore. He'd been buried under years of silence, replaced by someone who'd spent too long building without their input to start needing it now. Still, the letter stayed. I didn't throw it out. I didn't frame it. It just remained, tucked behind the drawer of my desk between patents and real estate documents, as a reminder of what absence does. By the next week, the neighborhood's whispers grew. I saw it in the way joggers slowed as they passed, in how the retired couple from across the street waved a little too enthusiastically whenever I stepped out. One even approached me during a morning walk. "You're the tech guy, right?" he asked. He smiled the way people do when they want to seem casual but already know the answer. "Something like that," I said, not slowing down. "We've all been wondering. You bought the Carter place without even seeing it?" I saw enough. He laughed, but I kept walking. That afternoon, my lawyer called. "Got a message forwarded from the HOA," she said. "They're asking if you're open to sponsoring the neighborhood tech upgrade project. Looks like your next-door neighbor mentioned your expertise." I let that sit in silence. "Should I decline?" she asked. "No," I said. "Let them ask again. Properly." That weekend, they threw a cookout. Not a coincidence. Burgers, folding chairs, plastic tablecloths, the kind of gathering that stank of old pride and new desperation. I saw the way they positioned the grill to face my driveway, the way my father waved at every passing car with sudden friendliness. My sister wandered closer to the fence, pretending to adjust the string lights they'd never used before. At one point, my mother approached the property line, holding a plate. She stood there, waiting. I watched her from the study, behind tinted glass. She lingered 5 full minutes before placing the plate down on the fence and returning to the party without looking back. It was a slice of cake, store-bought. No note, just the cake. I didn't touch it. Instead, I spent the evening hosting an online meeting with overseas investors. We finalized the last round of funding on a health tech venture that would triple my portfolio valuation. When I ended the call, it was after midnight. The cake was still there, now damp from dew. Ants had begun to find it. The next day, the plate was gone. I didn't need to check who took it. I already knew. 2 months passed without contact, but the tension didn't leave. My father watered plants that didn't need moisture. My mother rearranged potted flowers along the front step every morning like they were signaling something. And my sister. She started leaving the driveway with the windows rolled down, music low, eyes flicking toward my house like she expected a moment to happen. None came. Then came the birthday, my 32nd. I hadn't celebrated the last 8. I hadn't told anyone the date this year. Still, on that morning, a gift bag appeared on my doorstep. Plain, brown, ribbon tied like a bow on a wound. Inside, a mug. Custom. On it, one word. Builder. No card, no signature. Just that word. I left it on the counter. That night, I opened the balcony doors and stood under the quiet sky. The neighborhood had dimmed. Porch lights glowed faint amber. My mansion's interior lit up like a command center, soft, white, clean. In the house next door, I saw the curtains shift. A silhouette paused, then retreated. They didn't know how to speak anymore. Not to me. Not without risking their pride. I didn't help them. Instead, I invested in the last piece of my project, a private back entrance installed, leading to a stone path between the 2 houses. Not a gesture, not an invitation, just an option. Whether they used it would be up to them. The contractor asked if I wanted it walled off. "You sure you don't want it closed?" he asked. "Could be a security issue." "No," I told him. "Let it stay open." And that was it. The past had already closed itself off. The present? It stayed open, but only if they were willing to walk it. The path stayed untouched for nearly 6 weeks. It curved cleanly along the side yard, pale stone set in dark gravel, bordered by upright lights that flicked on at dusk. Functional. Director. Visible from every upper window in their house. But they didn't take it. Not once. Not after the cake. Not after the mug, not even after my name began appearing in magazines they actually subscribed to. They stayed behind their doors, letting glances carry the weight of conversations they never started. Until the rain came. It was late afternoon. The sky broke open without warning. Thunder first, then a sudden downpour that soaked everything in minutes. I watched from my office window, the storm battering the sleek glass like it wanted inside. I turned back to the screen in front of me. A contract for a new acquisition. 10 million in buyout clauses, 12 executive signatures pending, and not one detail I couldn't understand without blinking. Power had become fluent to me. Then came the knock. Not on the front door, not on the gate buzzer. From the back. Quiet, uneven, just enough to pull me away from the desk. I walked through the hallway, past the sculpture I'd placed there intentionally, the one facing their bedroom window, and when I opened the sliding door that led to the backyard, she was there, soaked through, shaking, hair plastered to her face. My sister. She didn't speak, just stood under the downpour like someone who'd wandered too far into a place they didn't recognize. I stepped aside. Not an invitation, just a choice. She took it. Inside, she left puddles across the tile floor. Her breathing was uneven. Not scared, just overwhelmed. I thought about it 100 times, she said. Coming over. I kept stopping myself. I didn't know how to say it. You just did, I replied. She sat at the edge of the chair near the glass dining table. I remained standing. I wasn't trying to intimidate her, but I had stopped giving away comfort a long time ago. I was jealous, she said, looking down. That you walked away, that you didn't need them, that you figured it out without us. I didn't interrupt. Let her carry the weight of her own sentences. They told themselves stories, she continued, about how you'd come back, how you'd fail and ask for help. They needed to believe that. So did I. Why now? I asked. Because it's worse this way, she said, knowing we had every chance to be decent and blew every one of them. There was no script, no pre-written speech, just a person unraveling in real time. They want to come too, she said after a pause. Mom and Dad, they talk about it when they think I'm not listening. I didn't build this house for them, I said, or for you. I know, she replied, but I needed to come anyway. I didn't offer forgiveness. I didn't pull her into a hug. This wasn't about closure. It was about understanding the cost of silence. She stayed for a while. I made coffee. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't reminisce. She looked at the walls, the art, the furniture, and understood none of it was for display. It was armor. Every piece had been earned in absence. She left through the same path she came in. The rain had eased, just enough for her steps to leave clean marks behind her. I didn't follow. I stood at the edge of the open door and watched the last few drops fall from the edge of the roof. 3 days passed. Then the second knock came. This time, both of them. My father in a stiff-collared jacket he didn't usually wear. My mother with her hands clasped like she didn't trust them not to shake. They stood under the same soft lights along the path. Outside the back door I hadn't locked. I told her I didn't want to do this, he said, the second I opened it. But I'm here. That was his version of an apology. It was the best I would ever get. My mother didn't speak right away. She stepped forward, eyes watering but held in place. We failed you, she said. I didn't respond. Not with words. I let them stand there carrying their own shame. I don't expect anything from you, she added. I just wanted you to hear it. You ghosted me, I said, keeping my tone level. You watched me disappear, and now that I've become someone you can't ignore, you want to cross back into the version of our lives that died years ago. We were wrong, my father said, finally dropping the pride. All of it. We thought we were helping by pushing you. We didn't know who you really were, and we didn't try to find out. That's the part that mattered, I said, not what you wanted from me, but what you ignored when I told you who I was. He nodded. No defense, no excuses. I didn't build all this to prove anything to you, I said. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about how it would feel, watching you see it. They didn't try to change the subject. They took it. I'm not angry anymore, I continued. I've moved past that. But I don't need this relationship back, not like it was, not out of guilt. They stayed silent. I don't hate you, I added. But I don't need to rebuild this house just to make room for people who didn't believe I could build anything at all. You don't have to, my mother said. We just needed to say it and let you decide. They didn't stay long. They left the way they came, quietly, not waiting for an invitation or a promise. And I believed they understood that the damage had already been done, that it wasn't about making things like they were. It was about acknowledging they could never be. Weeks turned to months. We didn't become close again. We didn't have Sunday dinners, but the silence shifted. It stopped being heavy, stopped feeling like something jagged pressing against both sides of the property line. They waved now, not forced, just a gesture of quiet respect. My sister texted sometimes, no long messages, no questions about the past, just occasional updates. I replied when I felt like it. That was enough. The house remained mine, not just in deed or design, but in meaning. It stood for everything they had missed and everything I had reclaimed, not out of revenge, not out of pride, but because I had built it when no one thought I could. That's the part they never forgot, and I never needed to say it out loud. They saw it every morning, in the driveway, in the balcony light, in the silence that no longer needed filling.